As we approach college graduation, we begin to think about the jobs and careers we will have. And if you think back a little bit farther, we can think about the jobs and careers our ancestors might have had. Maybe your ancestors were masons, or maybe they were carpenters, or maybe they were beekeepers. Beekeeping or apiculture is one of the oldest widespread professions. While technology and method have evolved, this career transcends time and nations. Beekeeping can be divided into two different periods. First, I will talk about the period of the early hive. Early beekeepers had to destroy their hive to harvest the honey. The first beekeepers, according to a history of beekeeping gathered by the South Texas Honey Company, were the ancient Egyptians. We found this through drawings on walls of the pyramids. You can see from these drawings right here that the Egyptians did, that they were active in beekeeping. The top drawing is a beekeeper tending to his bees, and the bottom drawing is a beekeeper pouring honey into a jar, or harvesting the honey. Ancient Egyptians kept their bees in woven straw baskets covered with clay. It was really a special profession, and they were known as sealers of the honey. This was because when they harvested the honey, they poured it into a clay jar, sealed it, and it could be kept for many years. Ancient Egyptians were not only beekeepers, but also honey hunters. Ancient honey hunters would look for wild honeybee colonies and harvest wild honey. Wild honey was even more treasured and valued than domesticated honey, so wild honey hunters were very special citizens in ancient Egypt, and they were actually protected by the royal archers. As the centuries moved on, the honeybees were moved to Europe and later the U.S. However, beekeeping really did not change for thousands of years. In the book Bees in America, Tammy Horn explains the three main types of early hives. The first main type of early hive was the skep. The skep was much like the hive that ancient Egyptians used. It was a woven basket that was turned upside down. You can see in the top right picture a row of skeps that a beekeeper had. Skeps were supported on the inside with sticks of wood. These sticks just held the basket from caving in. Log gums were also used. Log gums were hollowed out logs with boards over the top for lids. You can see on the left side is a log gum. There was also box hives, which were just rudimentary boxes made of wood of various sizes. All of these were fixed comb hives. That meant that the hive and the colony had to be destroyed in order to harvest the honey. Also, the bees could not be checked during the year, and when it was harvested, there was a good chance that the beekeeper would be stung repeatedly. At the end of the season, all of the bees were killed by burning sulfur in front of the hive. Beekeepers recognized these problems and began to think of ways to revolutionize the hive. And this problem was solved in 1851 by Lorenzo Loraine Langstroth. He was a minister in Pennsylvania, and he created the modern hive. You can see a picture of him on the left and a picture of his hive on the right. This is explained in the book History of Beekeeping. Lorenzo Langstroth studied the bees and came up with the concept of bee space. Bee space explained that the honeybees need 3/8 of an inch in between their honeycomb in order to fly between it. However, any more than 3/8 of an inch and they will fill it in with honeycomb, making it a solid mass. With this information, Langstroth created the movable frame hive. He spaced each of the frames in the box 3/8 of an inch apart, so they would not be filled with honeycomb, so he could lift the frames out, harvest the honey, and replace them back. Because of Langstroth's modern hive, this made commercialized large-scale beekeeping possible. No longer did you have to destroy the entire hive to get the honey out. Frames could be taken out, the honey could be harvested and then replaced. The honeycomb is still left intact. As you can see, here are some modern hives. Because the honeycomb is still left intact, bees are able to not have to build more honeycomb and just refill it with honey. So it yields more in a season. Also, beekeepers could check their bees. Because the bees were not killed at the end of the winter or at the end of the summer, the beekeepers could keep them over winter and could domesticate bees permanently. Today I've talked about the history of beekeeping from ancient Egypt all the way to modern times. Beekeeping is certainly a profession which has been important to society for thousands of years. It is continually improved to meet society's needs. Beekeepers have recognized problems and created solutions by making new inventions. Despite all of these changes, one thing has certainly stayed the same in the beekeeping industry, and that is the sweet taste of honey.